Welcome back. And we're moving into our first conversation this morning with President of the Public Service Union, Eldred Neal. Good morning and welcome.
Hi, good morning and welcome, Marlene and
Jamie.
Jamie, okay. Good morning, Belize.
Of course. And we appreciate you taking the time to come in to have this conversation. Your post and your comments have been the topic of conversation all over Belize because of the controversy and the controversial way that you referred to the Garifuna community. And I just want to dive right into it and ask you, how do you respond to the concerns that have been coming out from the public, from the other members of the unions regarding your comments?
Again, allow me to be apologetic to the country, to have my voice, whether doctored or real, bring this kind of riff about. That is not who I am, has never been, will never be. And whether the content was tampered with or not, the conversation was held. A number of individuals were discussed at length. And in fact, I've had an entire 2 days now to listening to all the comments and view the perception in which I now fit. But from where I sit and my heart, in no way that is who I am. And the Garifuna folks whom I'm with too often, who got me to this position, ought to know that there's some form of play being made at me directly. To discredit me, it appears to be the main objective at this point. And in fact, I believe the power issue is really being played out here. But what amazes me is the way all of this has been sensationalized. Marvin, whether he's just an outright liar or suffers from amnesia and wants to move away and play around what has been said or what the content in which we spoke was doctored to meet the message within the letter that was produced.
Let me start off there, because that has been your initial response, and you still maintain that to now, that the recording that has been leaked to the media is one that has been doctored.
Of course. There was a section that spoke to, I went to study in St. Vincent. And then someone it jumped into, and I was there last month. If you would read these matters through, I went to St. Vincent to represent the union at the conference that all public service union presidents attend. And the entire length of that conversation was my disdain and my upset about the fact that individuals would be treating the trade union movement like tourism. Individuals would attend these conferences and not even sit for a moment in these conferences.
Well, I believe the comment that regarding St. Vincent was that you stayed up all night researching why the Garifunas in Belize are the way they are.
Wow. So I would be in St. Vincent because St. Vincent is supposed to be the home of the Garifuna, staying up all night to study the Garifuna.
So you did not say that. Is that what you're saying? Let me ask you this. From what you have heard that has been released, what do you own up to in terms of what was said on that tape?
I own everything that was said on that tape. Everything.
So why do you say it's doctored?
Because we're having a conversation right now. You ask me a question. You go back tomorrow and you play back that question. You omit what I said in the latter part of that. Played only that portion, brings in another portion, and then that's what I said. Wouldn't it still be?
Well, Mr. Neal, owning up to the entire conversation, owning up to everything that you said, it's very honorable. admitting that you're responsible for the words that you uttered. But it behooves me a little. If you own up to the whole thing and everything that you say, isn't it kind of remiss to look at the doctoring as being a strike against you? You still said it. If I say I have a cat and it has 7 tails, and someone cuts out the part that has it has 7 tails, or I have a cat, I still said the entire thing. So what do you say to that? And I think that's Marlene's question.
You have a cat and it has 7 tails. And I did not like this cat anymore, so I destroyed him. I tossed him in the garbage truck. I removed, he had 7 tails, and I didn't like him anymore. I have a cat, and I don't like him anymore, and I tossed him in the garbage truck.
Well,
how would that come off to the public?
Well, in that breath, what did you mean when you said those things?
What
Maybe
did I
that would
mean?
be more clear.
It can't be clearer if we don't, if the snippets that you received were placed in such a way to portray me as this individual. You see, the thing with words, when it's released, it's gone.
Yeah.
All right? The interpreter, then it's left to them. The perception then falls on the individuals. And I'm saying, I'm not here nor there with whether what you heard was said. You don't take portions of a conversation, play them in a row, and then that's what you are. And I'm saying, and I'll sound off and I'll stay on that.
Now let me jump in here, because I think let me ask a very specific question. If the tape, as you say, is doctored, what is the purpose, Eldred? Why would someone want to go through this much trouble to fix a tape, to release to the public, to attack you personally?
I love that. No, we can speak on that. And this is no hearsay. I've been cautioned that certain matters can simply go away if my position on certain matters would change.
Your position on what? Help us understand why you feel this is a personal attack against you.
No, well, I don't want to feel anymore whether this is a personal attack on me. This is a personal attack on me. There's no feelings about that anymore.
Well, you have to understand
All
that
right.
people are still skeptical of that. So please do explain your position.
My support for Ms. Willoughby going into the National Trade Union Congress elections have been one that my support for Ms. Willoughby, while she was elected as a trustee, to even be at the Council of Management has been an issue. The conversation, if you have heard all the different versions, I have about 8. So I'm sure there's a lot of doctoring that has occurred. One of them had portions where you heard me speaking about Ms. Willoughby. You heard me speaking about Brother Luke. You heard me speaking about Brother Fraser. It was an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours long conversation amongst 3. My brother don't recall don't know who did the recording, and he thinks it was 5 persons. But I'm not a drinking man. I don't smoke, I don't drink. So that was not intoxication.
So it was 3 people in the conversation.
Point blank.
So people...
Hear me. I've even heard portions of the conversation in my voice, clearly with me speaking in broad Creole, using a number of obscenities. Any person who knows Eldred Neal, I rarely resort to speaking in Creole.
I want to go back to the personal attack. Explain to me why.
No, well,
Because you supported Jackie Willoughby?
oh yes, and if the conversation wasn't doctored, you would have heard why I asked them why they wouldn't support Jackie when she has the most experience at the table. You would have heard their response to why they wouldn't support her. You would have heard their lobbying me and showing me where they would have actually supported Ms. Fain Nicasio for the position. And you would have heard me saying and assuring them, I will not speak on that matter. I would leave that to after the AGM, should you wish to have this conversation.
When you're more prepared. That was part of what you said.
That's right.
Part of what I have heard on the
That's
tape.
right.
You have also said in the tape, and this isn't part that I think has been included in the media coverage, that you spoke to Jackie Willoughby about not running for the role and about being an attorney and making money as an attorney.
Because
So-
that's who I am.
Why were you talking her down if you were supporting her? And how does that lend to the fact that
I love
people
this.
are
I love
attacking
this.
you because of supporting Jackie?
You see, one of the things you have to understand about me, I'm real. When I spoke to Jackie about that position, and other folks have as well, for some strange reason, there's this idea out there that some people are not privy to certain position in this country. Jackie served her time, went away, and she has come back now, studied. In her environment, it's called learnt. And when I look at her, and I canvassed all the other unions for support of her because I promised I was going to get her elected. And if the vibes I'm getting from all of these unions is that they will not support her, then the right thing for me to do is to let her know what my findings are. And in the same conversation that this recording was done, I told them that as well. I find that. And whilst I know they won't support her, Jackie, for who she is, wanted to run still. And she ran, and I supported her 100% then, 100% today, and I will support her 100% tomorrow. But don't confuse my asking her to step down as not supporting her.
So
I cited what was coming.
So explain to me further. Jackie ran for the president of the NTUCB,
Yeah.
lost.
Yeah.
You supported her. Why would there be a need for a personal attack after she has lost? It is very difficult for people to understand that someone will go through all this trouble after the fact.
Because after the fact, we sit at a table where the presidency is still in question. And maybe, whilst the media has sensationalized snippets to bring me off as a bigot or a racial individual, that is where the media should be doing the digging.
Okay.
We have the Trade Union Congress at war, have been at war since the land renown, and no one seems to pick up on that, and the country and its workers are at bay. They're left without a representative.
So in interviews, you have said that this is an act of union busting.
Thank you.
And I'm having a bit of difficulty understanding how you take the position that this is a personal attack. Because, and I've said the reasons why, because it is really after the fact of the NTUCB elections. But let me move away from that for a second, just so I can go back to the facts of what was said. And you
Okay.
own up to what you have said.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Now, there's specific terms that you have said that no matter how it's doctored, when you speak about racial war, that is racism. When you speak about these people are only hungry for positions, these people is a generalization of the entire Garifuna community across the country.
And for that, I sit here humbled and ready to apologize because I spoke specifically to the group of people at my Council of Management.
But you are not speaking of the personalities. What we have heard is not speaking of personalities who are Garifuna. You are speaking of Garifuna people. And you must understand how that would offend any person who is proud of this culture, of their own culture.
That is so true. And again, when you are in a conversation as light as the one we had, the conversation was based around the Council of Management members. And mind you, there are outstanding members at the Council of Management who place integrity before this kind of racial game. The ethics of being a union member is maintained amongst a number of individuals. So don't believe that it's about all players at the table that are Garifuna. We were speaking about a specific group of individuals at the table. And I am wrong to have been generalizing the way I did but the conversation, the content of that portion of the conversation was about a specific number of individuals. And when broken down into pieces, then now is exploded into the vast group or the entire culture.
Now, let me, I hear you say something and it triggers a thought in my mind, and you said the racial game. I am not privy to the meetings that take place at the NTUCB, at the PSU, at the Council of Management. But what I am hearing from you is that you genuinely believe that there is a racial divide within the union. Is that the case?
Yes, ma'am.
And where does this racial divide take place?
Well,
It is the Garifuna versus everyone else. Is that what you're saying?
Well, what you heard and what was played for you in the doctoring was clearly me saying something like that. There's a racial war. If I am speaking on matters of integrity and matters of principle, and we're supposed to cast a vote, and if the matter is in question about one person who is actually functioning outside of the norm of trade unionism, every other person who would sit there would not hold that person accountable. And in fact, I'll go a bit further. I have a member who is no longer on the Council of Management, who is of the Garifuna descent, who called out these kind of ill doings, and the consequence was she's no longer elected. So don't get me wrong as to suggest.
Can you respond to my specific question? You said yes, there is a racial war taking place. So it is the Garifuna people versus the other ethnicities within the unions. I'm asking you to clarify, because when you speak racial war, racial game, racial divide.
Stop saying Garifuna people.
Well, I'm asking you to clarify. Where is this racial divide that takes place?
The individuals who sit at the table, a few of them of Garifuna descent, tends to lean more towards the support of their ethnicity rather than the principles laid at the table. And that is where that statement was passed at those individuals who tend to do so. A few have the intestine in them to call out wrongdoing, but the reality is, when it comes down to a number game, in our form of democracy, everything is done by vote. Mm-hmm. And if my perception of wrong as the leader of this cluster of individuals is tabled and minuted, and we cannot even move to address it solely because it's one individual I'm questioning, and that becomes held up and is never addressed month in, month out. And the good thing to this is all of my issues that I've had are minuted. Once it comes down to that, folks then have a reservation. I've seen folks vote against matters within the Constitution to support ethnicity versus ethics. This is wrong, and that's what I spoke to.
You know,
that's the kind of racial war that I was meaning.
That's interesting that you say that they support ethnicity over ethics. How would you prove that someone is supporting ethnicity over ethics? To me, whenever within a professional setting, the most qualified, the most professional, the most experienced wins every single time, regardless of what that person's ethnicity is. How do you say that and that's another generalization, they are pushing a racial agenda? How do you even prove that?
Maybe I may never be able to prove it. But the results, the time I've spent at the table, the amount of matters that could have been moved, minuted matters that could have been moved, the votes will show it.
I have a quick question. So in the instance where there was just Creole people on the council, or it's just Spanish and Creole people. Would you feel the same way?
Very much. Very much.
But then,
As long as we're here to serve people and we're not serving people.
don't you think that in itself is racism? Because in our country, we live where there are Creole people, there are Mestizo people, there are Garifuna people. So it is inevitable that within a council, within any professional organization, there is going to be a varied distinction of different ethnicities. So why is that even an issue of who is pushing what ethnicity? Why is that an issue? Isn't that racism within itself?
I like the spin you've brought. It can't be racism if we'll sit objectively at the table. But whenever it comes down to moving a matter along, I find myself having to have a need being met. I am going to be extremely reserved. And I respectfully have chosen to decline to divulge the nature of the practices. Whilst the matter of the letter and the audios being played have had all media houses trying to have me wear my laundry out in public. I've done so, if you notice, taken on the media by myself, solely because I want them to understand who I am. At the Council of Management, and I've been tasked to call a meeting, all right? A number of individuals have made a request for a meeting, but at the same time, there are some priorities that have been set out long before this matter came forth. But we're going to have that meeting.
Now, a key portion of the letter that you speak of, and I appreciate that you bring it up, because the letter points out essentially, and I am paraphrasing at this point, that it has long been suspected that you have had this racial undertone in your perspective of how the Council of Management is being run, and now there is information to prove such. So it doesn't sound, by the tone of the letter, that this is anything that is new to the people who have been working with you for some time. And these are people from within your union.
Interesting. So their letter suggests a matter like that. And they're speaking to the same recording because, again, as I said,
Yes.
I have been cautioned even before the election that should I not support Ms. Willoughby, all this can go away. If this matter was of such concern to these individuals, I have an office of 3 staff. How would a letter of this nature being sent to me and received by me be leaked to the public? Why would it be so important to discredit and have my face out here this way? The lead behind all this matter, and I want to caution these individuals to where this matter has gone. Because, you know, yesterday I spoke with my daughter and she was questioned in school by her peers about the comment that the media has sensationalized.
The comment that is on record of you saying
That the media has sensationalized. And I want to caution Herman Pastor particularly because this is the most energy he's moved with in a long time. It's now becoming a little too personal. And hear me well. The level of energy that was put into this could have been placed. We had an audience on Friday where we could have sat down and this could have been tabled. None of these individuals, a number of them available, did not voice this concern, you know. They needed to leak this to the media. The Public Service Union's business has no place out here. It will be tabled and it will be addressed in and amongst those individuals whom it should be rightfully placed to. We have a constituent. I will not be like Lori Lee, worse Marvin. So, whilst the effort around the country may want to keep this spiraling, I assure you, the Council of Management will meet. I have a fixed agenda where I will be in every branch. And I trust that the meeting they have been tasked for us to have thereafter, this can be tabled. And the constituent then will have their state.
Now, you have been asked to resign as the president of the Public Service Union.
I read on the letter, man. Let's get specific. Because when I read the letter, the first thing in the letter was Eldred Neal, or Mr. Neal, not the president. So they personalized it. Again, professionally, that's a wrong position. On the end of the letter, I was asked to resign by AGM and not to put myself up again.
Yes. Will you resign from your post?
I am after my tour, my constituents will indicate to me whether I should or not. And
So you will go to your constituents to find out if they want you to resign?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you will also find out from them whether or not you should run again at the next AGM?
Definitely.
Okay. Now, what makes you think that when you go into communities in Dangriga or any part of this country, after hearing the words that you admit that you've said, what makes you think you can be able to change their mindset, that you are capable of leading the organization without a bias against the Garifuna people or any indigenous people?
I am not here to try to change that. If public officers or any individual out there can take these snippets and determine that that is who I am, then I am saying my attempt to speak to them will be futile and basically fatal. All right? I have no regards for the individuals who've brought this about, but I have every ounce of regard for all people within this country, and especially for all members of the constituents of which I serve. I will not try to sway them in any way. I'm appreciative of where I am with them, and I want to assure you they will be tasked to levy between right and wrong, and whilst no one wants to literally speak to the fact that this is a level of discreditation that for some reason came about, I'm not here to seek sympathy from anyone, but I want you guys to know Eldred Neal does not need the title president for me to maintain being Eldred Neal. I stand for what I stand for. And these snippets, played in whichever form they were, was produced to tarnish my character.
Do you believe that your own words have played a role in tarnishing your own character?
That's a loaded question, because my own words, when played in an orchestrated way, may have tarnished my character, and I own that. But I will not sit here and say that I'm working to my own demise. Two different things.
Do you regret the things you said in that tape?
You should ask me if I regret having the conversation.
No, I asked if you regret the things that you said on the tape.
I regret the things said on the tape being played and doctored to suit the purpose. I do regret it. My words, clearly out of content. I'm amazed that Marvin's enlightenment or education of something that has been tabled, whether covered or obviously open, sharing it with me in that conversation was taking out of text the way it was. Regretting being part of the conversation, definitely. Regretting saying that we're at a racial war. If you're going to take it to the broader scope, country of Belize, I'm not at war with the Garinago or any race of individuals. For the individuals at the table whom presented the amount of conflict you have had, I trust you've seen where this divide has taken us. And I'm humbled by it. Maybe that's what you wanted, but not at the risk of creating a kind of bias in the country that we do not need.
Now, I want to point out to you, because I think something is missing in the conversation. Your role as the Public Service Union president
Yep.
is to be the representative for all workers in public service. And those include quite a number of persons who identify with the Garifuna culture. And that is important because you need to be seen as somebody who can represent all. And it is not, in fact, if we need to refresh everybody's memory, it is not impossible for racial issues to be a part of union issues, because we saw in Dangriga where the CWU has had to step in for a bank worker who was fired or claimed to be fired because of speaking Garifuna in the office. And the Garifuna community had to come out, the union had to come out to ensure that her rights were not violated. Now, you are asking to maintain a post as the person who represents all, and you have spoken out specifically against one ethnicity. Whether you meant to generalize or not,
Okay.
that is how your words were
played.
communicated.
All right.
From your own mouth. I mean, the very first question we asked you was if you said it, and you agreed to saying you accept that you said
That's
everything.
right.
So how does the Garifuna community, how do you go into these communities and tell them
I can
it's not
represent
my
you.
fault? It's being fixed to sound the way that it didn't.
Have
If you have said Garifunas are hungry for position,
you heard me say or suggest that I will go to say something like that? I will
well,
approach.
what will you say to them? What can you say to them at this point?
What can I say to them at this point?
What can you say, and beyond that, what can you say to the people of Belize? Because to be very clear, I don't think these comments only upset the Garifuna community.
Okay.
There are many people in this country who detest any kind of racial division that can be manipulated in the public. So what do you say to these people that are deeply offended by the words that you have said?
All right. And to the people of Belize, and primarily the Garinago, the snippets you've heard of negative sounding statements made by myself were specific to a behavior that didn't condoned at the table. It had no intent to offend or to bring about this kind of racial divide, and it doesn't speak to who I am or the office I hold. Like a cast arrow or a release bullet, it cannot be taken back. And it is up to you to determine how you would receive me hereafter. In no way and at no time I would put any individual in a compromising position as this. But whilst a few have favored to put me here, I assure you, the stars are lined up. Karma is, I leave you to that condemnation. I will not spend any more time trying to enlighten the public who would have already decided what they believe of me. But the work I've done, and one individual said it best in a chat group, all your efforts, Mr. Neal, all the time you've sat there, everything you've given would have been gone in just this one breath. And sadly, it's my breath of air, my puff. But again, I trust there's a certain level of intelligent people out there who can see beyond what has been the obvious. And in fact, at the most recent conference, I sat having a similar like discussion. And the gentleman from Bahamas, shared with me and said, maybe it's time It's time. It's time that we get these matters addressed. Because they're not silent anymore.
These
These matters, the conflicts within the unions. It's time we get them addressed.
the conflicts of racial divide.
Well, the media has remained at the racial divide. And again, I remain at the conflicts within the union.
Okay.
And if racial divide has been used to get it out, then I say maybe it's that time.
Okay.
And the gentleman gave me a little tune, and I want to interest the Belizean populace to go and find this. It's a nice, popular Bahamian track. It says, Dog no bark out a car. Nice, catchy little track. Dog does not bark after parked car.
Okay. Well, Mr. Neal, we appreciate you coming in to be able to share your perspective on this issue. And we hope that the people who have listened have been able to feel enlightened by your version of what took place.
I hope it's not just my version, but my sincerest apology to the country of Belize. Marlene, I've heard your remarks. I know that you're touched by it as well. Jamie. It's amazing how one can be fit in a certain character overnight. And I like the leader of the opposition. He said, in one breath, we are to be cautioned to even consider having these conversations. All right? At this time. And in the same breath, that we should be tarnished for it.
Okay. Well, thank you once again for coming in. We appreciate it. All right, we're going to go ahead now and take a break. And when we come back, it's for a conversation with representatives of Bowen & Bowen and some recipes from Chef Sean Quillen as it is chocolate stout season. Stay tuned.